The Irrational Confidence Podcast. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Irrational Confidence Podcast. We're talking college football, and week number 12 is in the books. I don't know if you guys were listening. We told you so. This is going to be a crazy week for college football. I had a co-host who's putting horns down right now, but his text messages prior to the game showed a lot less confidence in there. I told you Kirby Smart doesn't lose twice in Athens. They're fresh. Fresh, how you doing, buddy?
Pat's doing great. Horns down, go Dawgs. Yes, I was nervous because Texas, I kind of looked, if you listen to the preview, I looked at them as being a desperate team like Georgia was when we went to Austin last year. Your playoff hopes are on the line. You got to figure they're going to pull some stuff out of their bag. They're going to try to really create an atmosphere and go for the jugular. It was Kirby in that team putting up 21 in the fourth quarter and really just being an anaconda and just strangling away Texas's hope. Arch actually played okay. And if you watch the first half, his receivers let him down. They five or six drop passes off the top of my, from even just off the top of my mind. Tons of penalties, very undisciplined. Maybe the moment was too big for them. But there was just something. The real Texas showed themselves. They played early with some energy. They dropped some passes. Maybe it's a different game. But that Georgia offense, Mike Bobo was in his bag. Schumann, that defense, were getting after it. They didn't have the sacks, but they created the chaos and the anxiety for Arch Manning and that entire offense. It was something that I think, it announced that, hey, Georgia might have had some close games earlier in the year versus Auburn and versus Florida, but these past 2 weeks, you're starting to see the machine kicking into the next gear. Kind of like you're driving a stick shift. You're going to make that shift the next gear, keep moving up, keep adding some torque. They get a week off, but how does the team get back up for Tech in 2 weeks? If the team does personally, I don't want Georgia to play for the SEC championship. I give them an extra week and let them get a home playoff game because you saw that environment in Athens last night. But at this point, you're getting the playoff. They're basically in now. Stay healthy, keep moving up. The CJ Allen injury, we'll see what happens with that because that was kind of very unfortunate. Really hate to see a great player like that down the stretch get an injury, especially when he's draft eligible. But it is what it is. When it looks at Texas, Arch actually didn't play terrible. He threw one, interception late that kind of sealed the ball game, but his receivers and his offensive linemen let him down. He was fine in receivers. He made some great throws, especially on third down. But that defense for Texas, outside of the Anthony Hill interception, they really weren't. They didn't live up to the snuff. And you kind of heard it, Kirby bringing it out in the post-game press conference about guys here at Georgia, we're about physicality, not about checks. Now, tongue-in-cheek, the guys are getting paid on NIL money, but we all know the Texas bank is very, very deep and lucrative. And all the Lambos that they're recruiting weekends and then, bringing all the players in, I think there's also a jab at, Atkinson and Justice Terry, who both after they had committed to Texas said that the relationships in Georgia with Kirby and the entire coaching staff were much better, but the dollar amount getting from Texas through NIL deal was just life-changing. So they're going for the check. They're not coming with physicality. And that was his sort of shot to recruits. Like, you can go get the check, but you're going to win and be developed here. Big statement. Georgia's not, basically saying, hey, we have not gone anywhere. We're not a perfect football team, but we are ascending every single week, and the team's getting better and better as they keep progressing. Texas, though, 3 losses. Even with beating A&M, they're out. Even if you beat A&M, you're out. Them being put at 10, though, it scares me what the committee's going to do. But when you see a fourth quarter disparity, 35-10 final, even putting up 21 late on you in a big game like that in the fourth quarter, that does not show you're one of the top 12 teams in the country. I'll say top 11 because the group of 5 is going to slide in. There is a major gap right there. And we've seen it all year. We saw overtime Kentucky. We saw overtime Mississippi State. You saw them fade here. You saw them lose to a below average, terrible Florida football team. Sark has a problem. And you mentioned it during your preview, like Sark has a Georgia problem, a Kirby problem. He has a problem getting his team up to play. Like, they aren't even playing at a high level.
Well, let me even jump in there fresh here. Okay, I'm a huge Bruce Springsteen fan, and one of my favorite songs by Bruce Springsteen is Glory Days. And I feel like Texas is living Glory Days, the song. Like, I had a friend who was a big baseball player way back in high school. Texas is like the prom queen that you saw who didn't go off to college, who didn't better herself. She got married at 19, 20 years old. And then you go to the 20th anniversary and she's no longer the most beautiful girl there in your high school. Texas doesn't just have a Georgia problem. They do have, Sark has a Georgia problem. Sark has a Kirby Smart problem. That game wasn't competitive. You're being very gracious here, Fresh. You're being very, very nice. Okay, you are. And again, I respect someone who wins with class.
I'm not gonna say it, but BTA was basically what happened.
Right. You're winning with class, which I highly respect on there. I don't have a dog in this fight on this game, pun intended there. But what I'm telling you is what has Texas done since moving to the SEC that proves to them that they are an elite top tier program? They're not. What win outside of that Alabama win, and that wasn't even when they were in the SEC. That was when they were in the Big 12. You go to Tuscaloosa. Yep, 3 years ago. What win do they have that they can sit there and hang their hat on and say that we are a power player in an elite level conference? What's happening with Texas is that they are still struggling from the mistakes they made. This whole thing started happening. The problems with Texas started happening the minute they fired Mac Brown. The minute they went from, and again, what's his Strong replaced him, correct? I think.
Yep, Charlie Strong, and then Tom Herman, and
then who's in
Sark
between
after that?
I think
or
so.
Another guy, I don't even know, but he was just underachiever after underachiever.
But that's the problem with Texas. Like this is one of those things that when you're an elite level program, when you're Notre Dame, Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama, and I think Alabama might have gotten it right with Kalen DeBoer, even though they lost. But when you're coming from having an elite level coach and you want to start talking about firing somebody, you want to start replacing your head coach. And this is one of the concerns I had with replacing Ryan Day is it is really difficult to thread that needle and to keep that team playing at an elite level. Take a look at USC. Pete Carroll leaves. They're struggling. They're looking like they're finally coming off the mat. Florida, Urban leaves. And you have Dan Mullen follow him afterwards. Again, you see what happens to these elite level programs. Sark's doing a good job getting them back to that really good status. But this whole notion that this is an elite high level football team is just idiotic. It is one of the dumbest things I've ever seen because of the fact that they don't have the signature wins. Anytime the chips are on them, I get it. They made the playoffs 2 years in a row. First year, boom, lose to Washington. Michael Penix Jr. and Kalen DeBoer take care of business there in the playoff, in a 14 playoff. Last year, they beat an Arizona State team with a injured. People forget Jordan Travis in that game, or Jordan Tyson was injured in that game. You had Scatabo and Levitt. And again, there was a couple calls there that Arizona State might have had their number. They go against the Buckeyes. They play the Buckeyes tough, but they lose still. This Texas team is living off of their glory days. That's all they're doing. They're not a elite level football team yet.
It's not even the glory days because the last championship, the last thing they actually were a true contender for was when Vince Young won a title.
20 years ago.
Texas, even before that, Texas would get all these great individual players.
They would.
The Ricky Williams, the Westbrooks, the Roy Williams, blah, 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 blah. But they can never deliver as a team. There is an ego and a coaching problem there at Austin where they can't get the coaches in there to challenge these kids because, number one, we all know, even beforehand, before NIL became something, players at Texas were getting a lot more than somewhere else. The whole SMU, Pony Express, it's because Texas boosters saw players they were supposed to get going to SMU, and they're the ones who basically were like, hey, NCAA, something's wrong here, because they were paying tons of money and not getting the return. It's the individual players come in there. They show up on campus. The coaches don't get them in a position to actually be successful because Mac Brown, he got them the one natty, had them play for a second versus Alabama, but they never actually were able to be consistent and find a way to win. That has to be a coaching problem of actually pushing the young men. Another reason why I think Kirby took that shot up, we are preaching physicality, not dollars, because you can get paid anywhere you want to go now. But if you actually want to compete for and win for a championship, come here. And I think he wouldn't have said that versus Alabama because he had, very limited success. That's a one game. But with Texas taking players in recruiting, that was his way of basically saying, you can take that check, but you're not going to beat me. And you're not going to go play for a national championship. You're not going to go be drafted as high. You're going to be an individual. You're going to get yourself taken care of. If you want to get developed, you want to win football teams, come to Athens. And that was his kind of a subtle, side recruiting stuff. Like, this is how it's done. And then Texas has been missing that mark for a long time. Individuals getting paid, the coaches don't get them developed. They don't win when they have to. They'll beat the low doldrums, so they beat them all through the Big 12. But when the big games matter, they don't show up.
Right. And I feel like that's even the SEC. Like, again, the top of the SEC is very good. It's great. Very great. But it's the middle tier. And again, Texas is going to beat up on the middle tier. They're going to beat up on the military. You're going to beat up on the Vanderbilt, the Kentuckys, the South Carolinas, the Floridas. You're going to beat up on
the same conversation for Ohio State and Indiana and Michigan versus the Big Ten.
I would say
There
the
are
same
top
thing.
teams, and there is nothing in the middle. This is where
Exactly.
showing up in big games matter.
Yeah. And I agree with that. I agree with, I think that we're seeing, that's why I've said a lot of times, I believe a lot of people want to always pit the two conferences against each other. And what I'm saying, I think my statement that I'm making now is that the conferences, we need to stop looking at them as leaders as they're going, but as parallel universes almost operating in the same plane as well. And I think that one of the differences you see is the Big Ten slightly bigger than the SEC. You have more teams. There's more ability to, you're going to have a little more teams in the lower end or in the middle end because you just sheer quantity over things. But again, I would make the exact same case for the Big Ten. I really would. Again, Ohio State, Indiana, Oregon, in my eyes there. We got to talk about USC because I love your take on USC, but let's get to some of these other games. We'll come back around to USC. Let's go to some of those noon kickoffs here, Fresh. I don't know if there's a bigger choke job that I've ever seen than South Carolina. And I'm not going to make the joke that is right there for us, but
How,
I don't know how you just do that, South Carolina. That is a joke.
and there's actually footage at halftime, go to the locker room, and Shane Beamer's like celebrating, pumping up his fans in the corner up the tunnel. You're kind of like, and then he also right there to the sideline reporter, basically like, well, last year we beat this team by 24. Like, you just tempted karma, dude.
Right.
You just saw anything that was going, and you will have a 3-6 coming in this ball game, completely abysmal. The fact that your name is not on the super hot seat is shocking. You have a 30-3 lead at halftime, and you start tempting the fates.
Mm-hmm.
You start bringing karma into it. You got what you deserved. The fact that that offense could not score a single point in the second half, even the final drive. Stellars, what are you doing? You're throwing terrible passes. You start running on 4th down and 4th and 15. Yeah, there were some penalties. Nick Harbor made one great catch, but where the play calling, there was actually one. I think it was 3rd down when he got sacked on the final drive. It is match protect, and you have 2 perimeter receivers running verts. There was no one crossing the middle of the field. It's obvious that a blitz is coming. You can see the linebackers creeping up, the safety creeping up. How do you not check out and give me something over the middle? You give it 2 verts, which are both doubled, or at least man coverage. You have no time. You have to go the length of the field. Where's the middle? Where's the hot read? The play calling was abysmal. I know you fired Shula. It didn't really change. Simply, where was that intensity? Dylan Stewart and company. Where was that intensity in the second half to shut the ball game down? Missing tackles, not getting after the quarterback, letting Reed and the entire team, especially Concepcion, making great plays. It's an epic meltdown. And we kind of joke back and forth. Like, at that point, does Shane Beamer tarmac himself? Like, not get on the plane and say, I'm firing myself, or resign and just leave himself there in College Station. The other part was like, maybe he got wind that James Franklin in the talks of Virginia Tech were heating up. He's like, well, I'm going to get fired so I can go take the job and try to be into it. If I'm Virginia Tech, I'm like, I don't care if your dad coached here and you coached here. That's the product you want to bring to Blacksburg. We can already do that ourselves. We can already, get our.
You can make a worse product than that.
You've already shot you shot yourself in the foot. Now you're stuck with Carolina, and this dream season fell apart. You might have one left, and then you're on the top of.
Yeah. All right, Fresh. So let's go to another one because I want to talk about this team as well because I think they are one of the more impressive teams right now. People are going to always be a victim of the record. They're going to look at 8-2, but they're going to have short-term memory loss on that, saying, those 2 losses are by, I believe, less than 7 points. Notre Dame. We talked about ways that Pitt could make that game competitive in our preview episode. I don't know if there is a better team outside of maybe our top 4 or 5 right now. I would say Notre Dame is right around in that 6 range of the best teams playing at this moment. What Notre Dame did defensively against Pitt was an absolute, just let me cut off the head of the snake and just stomp out that group. CJ Carr had another great game, but Jeremiah Love, and I know that there's a couple of people saying this, and I really don't understand why Notre Dame isn't getting more love right now from everyone else. Again, I get the schedule is a little bit softer because they're an independent. It makes things life difficult, but they do have a win over USC, who's playing really well. They have the 2 losses. Again, people will say those things as well. If we're going to discount Alabama's loss to FSU at the beginning of the year, which I've noticed a lot of people doing, then we need to really have a talk about discounting Notre Dame's loss to Miami. And Miami's a better team than FSU.
Yeah, and if you look at the A&M game, there's controversy at the end that A&M was holding on that final touchdown. So did they even get, shorted? They are That right there, those two games should prove that they are one of the top 11 teams. I'm going to say the group of five just by itself,
Easy.
so the top 11 teams in the country. Much as we hate the Notre Dame, like, oh, their schedule is this and their schedule is that, they still played four ranked teams. They beat two handily, and they lost to one by 1 point, lost another one on the road in the very opener, where they made a tremendous fourth quarter comeback. It's what Marcus Freeman's done with that entire staff. They are who they are. They came right after it. The defense was playing better. They just very similar to Georgia. They have gotten better as the season's gone on. You've seen growth, you've seen development, you've seen players, locking in communication. They deserve to be a playoff team. People are like, oh, it's Notre Dame. They get that Notre Dame fatigue, or the same argument. But you know what? The way this is playing out, Notre Dame right now is better than Texas. Notre Dame is better than Missouri, better than Vanderbilt, they're better than USC. They're better than Michigan. They're better than BYU. That might be a fun one, but I think they're still better than BYU. There's no one in the ACC outside of Georgia Tech that I think right now they're better than. Yeah, they have lost to Miami. Miami has two losses. So you know what? Unless you're going to start going back, well, hey, that game right there should trump them. I saw Miami lose to Louisville. And we always saw what happened. Louisville, when the game's on the line, they lost to a terrible Clemson team. So you can play the hypotheticals all you want, but Notre Dame is ascending when they actually are supposed to be playing. Now, should games in August, September mean as much in the same as November? In theory, yes. But you know what?
Right.
When you're coming off a fresh summer and you're playing a game trying to get yourself, there's no preseason, that right there gets taken into account. And you're seeing the health of a team, the growth of a team, the maturity of a football team as the season progresses, being able to remain focused and keep driving forward. That also shows that this team is actually ascending. We have, there's a talk right now in the NFL where the first, 4 weeks of the season, basically September, the games are sloppy because they're still actually kind of reverberating from preseason. We're getting the same kind of element right now. Early September, late August games in college football, they are sloppy because these teams haven't had a chance to hit anybody outside themselves. They're trying to get their feet under them, figure out actually who is worth their salt. And as the season progresses, they get better and they start getting into a groove. Playbooks start being expanded out more. And that's what you're seeing right now with Notre Dame. The playbook is being expanded. The players are playing faster. They're feeling more confident in the calls, and they're showing up on game day.
All right, so let's go back to a conversation real quick here that we had over the summer in our preseason. Pick a school that isn't Georgia or Ohio State, because again, I'm going to ask you, like, if you were the AD of a football program, you're an elite level program or a top tier program, and you have to choose between Dan Lanning and Marcus Freeman right now. And again, that's why I take off Georgia and I take off Ohio State, because Marcus Freeman would go to Ohio State, Dan Lanning would probably go to Georgia. So pick one that program that is there wouldn't be a underlying tie. Who would you go with? Would you go with Dan Lanning and what he's doing in Oregon, or what Marcus Freeman's doing? Because I think it is really hard for me to decide which one of them is the best young coach right now, because I think both guys are doing just such a phenomenal job.
So obviously Dan Lanning did a tremendous job at Georgia, worked under Nick Saban, worked under Kirby, so he has some lineage there and some connection. Marcus Freeman, obviously Ohio State former player under Luke Fickell there at Cincinnati, grew up, played himself in there, and now does a great job at Notre Dame. The one caveat that does make it interesting is that both those programs have basically unlimited bank accounts. So They can recruit, they have facilities. You're not having to develop a brand. You just need to get guys to play at a higher level. The academic standards at Notre Dame would give me the edge to Marcus Freeman, because he does have to get guys to play a little higher. You can't go out in the transfer portal and just find Joe Schmo who maybe has a 2.5 and is just going to be there to show up and catch a couple touchdowns or make a couple tackles. You have to be able to get a different kind of player. At Oregon, they can go out and get whoever they want, and that also lets you stock your roster. It's the only slight edge that he is doing it with a little more restriction. And it's not like they're not playing, but they have 4, ranked opponents this year off the top of my head. Who does Oregon play when it comes to ranked opponents? Indiana lost. Penn State was ranked at the time. They won.
They got USC coming up and
USC
Iowa
coming up, and they played Iowa. So 4. They both run the same, and it is what it is. But they do have unlimited resources. Oregon, I guess the slight edge to Marcus Freeman, but you can't really go wrong with either of them, because they're leaders of men. And going back to the Kirby Smart thing compared to Sark, you need leaders of men. Football is it's not tennis, it's not golf, it's not any kind of country club sport. You are going to be hitting people. You are going to have to try to get guys to dig deeper and play at a physical level, mentally and physically strong the entire time. You're going to have tough days. You're going to have good days. You have to find ways to get guys and rebuild them back up to understand how to execute, especially in the state of social media, where if the game is over and they lose, people are going to be on Twitter, Instagram, whatever, bashing, a player for letting them down. You got to go help that guy get reset. Focus in, coach him up, and get him ready to go out there and redeem himself in game and post game. Leaders of men are essential. And that's
Mhm.
where I think Marcus Freeman and Dan Lanning are in that category of leaders of men. They are going to develop them. They're going to put them in position to be successful. They're going to coach them up. They are a father figure that is essential in this time of life with social media and the pressure of being able to perform. You can't go wrong with either of them. And have it if I had a son playing and one of those two men walked in, number one, it'd be really awesome that my kid is getting recruited. But you're looking, they're like, all right, this is a
I'm
man
cool
who
with
I
that.
trust with my son for the next 4 to 5 years of his life. And I know that not only is he going to make him a great football player, he's going to help him be successful. He's going to develop him in life, and that's where those elements come into play. And that's a huge
It's a
statement
huge
across the
compliment.
board.
All right, Fresh, let's go to a couple other of these games before we get to my playoff rankings here. And again, folks, make sure you're locked in here on the channel because I will give my playoff rankings. Fresh, you got to go to you got to go to spoonbillsports.com. Fresh, you want to talk about Alabama, Oklahoma first? And I really do want to get to that Iowa USC game. Which
Before
one
we
you want
jump
to
there,
have?
let's kind of look at the group of five because we saw a major shake with USF kind of
Yeah,
dropping the ball at Navy. And just looking at the American right now,
American's
Tulane
crazy.
has two basically, they should be giving you walkovers to get themselves in there. Navy has Memphis next week, which creates a bit, even though Memphis lost again, that creates a tough challenge for Navy. And then you right behind you have North Texas, who has the tiebreaker over Navy. So if Navy wins and beats Memphis, they're in the East American title game. If Tulane wins out there in the American title game, the two of them will play. Probably, if neither of them take another loss, going to be the representative of the group of five. Now, James Madison does have a chance. James Madison has a chance if Navy loses to Memphis this week, upcoming, and then North Texas plays Tulane for the title. North Texas wins. Are they going to be ranked higher than James Madison, depending on the way we have, or James Madison can keep piling through? That's where that conversation comes into play. North Texas is still a dark horse candidate outside, so is Tulane, but there's now 4 teams in reality. James Madison, Tulane, North Texas, and Navy for that group of 5 spot. If you are looking for some sort of team that's going to sneak in Navy and just wade to the look at San Diego State. They only have one conference loss, but their out of conference schedule is probably what hurts them and their lack of exposure. James Madison, they don't have the out of conference wins, so that where that ranking comes into play, but they are still a very, very good football team with only one loss. If they win through Tulane, if they win the American Conference and they survive the schedule, their out of conference schedule of Ole Miss, Northwestern, and Duke, plus wins over Northwestern and Duke, are really going to help them and probably give them that nod. But now you're starting to see that group sort of work itself out. There's still chaos left, but the group of 5, they're going to be the 12 seed. We're not going to have like we had last year with Boise State was a a 4 seed and getting a bye. We're going to see them go in that 12-5 matchup. So then you start thinking, how does that 12-5 matchup play out? North Texas, they love to throw the football over. Tulane is a great defense, but John Summerall's a contention for jobs.
What about
Navy can run the football. ECU, they have the tiebreakers are so far down. I find it very difficult for them to sneak in.
Where did you find the tiebreakers? I was looking for those.
Well, the tiebreakers are basically head-to-head matchups, and also
they only lost to Tulane,
but they lost to Tulane. Tulane's ahead of them, and Tulane's going to win out because they have Temple and Rice. So that's putting them in. They're going to be behind. They're going to be behind North Texas. If you look at the way the current standings are, North Texas has the tiebreaker due to margin of victory.
Is it margin of victory or winning a percentage against common opponents?
Either one will probably work out, but they're still going to be ahead.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But ECU is sort of there. I mean, they're putting together a great season, but I just don't. It's going to take a lot for them to fall in. Now, obviously, we have weeks to go. If this can beat Navy, you could see Tulane lose the next 2 games and get too high themselves, and then it floats up North Texas, ECU, and at that point, then you really start scratching your head. Like the American maybe is going to hope for North Texas, and I think everyone's going to hope for James Madison.
Yeah, I would not be shocked to see the committee put James Madison in this week. Especially after what they did to App State last night.
If James Madison and Tulane and Navy aren't ranked, we can't keep ranking 3 and 4 lost teams, folks. These teams have shown all year they've played the games. Right. They need to be at least. Look, we just saw Cincinnati and we saw USF lose this week at 24 and 25. Those other 3 teams got to move up. You can't just look at the name. You got to look at the record. Yes, the schedules are different, but 3 losses and 4 losses does not mean one of the 25 best teams in the country. Win. You have to win. You are who your record says you are, to quote Bill Parcells.
Yeah. I still don't understand how they have not put James Madison in there. I get it. You're going to point to the schedule, but these are the same people that were ranking Liberty a couple of years ago and all these other programs that were playing next to nobody.
and sent Liberty out to the Fiesta Bowl to get beat by 70 by Penn State.
Right. Here's the thing. Like, James Madison has only been in FBS program for what, 4 years now? Is it 4 or 5?
4 or 5.
Cincinnati came from there. Yeah. So I just struggle with people who are like, oh, yeah, we're not going to put them in there. I'm like, come on, guys. You got to throw them a bone. Throw them a bone. All right, Fresh, let's talk about this upset that happened in Tuscaloosa. And Alabama, what a defensive job from the Oklahoma Sooners.
That what defense was all over the place. They had Ty Simpson seeing ghosts.
And Ty Simpson did okay. Like, he played well. But did you see Oklahoma's defense holds Alabama to 2.4 yards a carry. I'll give credit because I said in our preview episode, Alabama needed to stop the run against Oklahoma, and they did, but you can't turn the ball over. They turned over 3 times, I believe?
So, like, yeah, 3
or 4. Yeah, they turned over 3 times. I just checked here real quick. Matir made the plays they needed to make, and I think Oklahoma was very opportunistic in this game. Again, I'm going to go back to something. Let me say this to start off with, because it's going to come off really, really bad. I like Kalen DeBoer. I like Ty Simpson. I like what Alabama is doing. Outside of the win of beating Georgia in Athens, which you got up for, your wins this year are against Wisconsin, joke, Vanderbilt, who is kind of falling off the hype train there, Missouri, fraud, Tennessee, fraud, South Carolina, disappointing, LSU, fired coach. I mean,
yeah,
what we got Alabama for because they look good, but they haven't looked great in this game.
They've kind of fallen off the past couple of weeks. I mean, the Vanderbilt game, it was tight and they pulled away late. And that was in the midst of when the game was actually being played. Vanderbilt was looking really good. The Tennessee nonsense, they're a rocky top for a reason. Missouri, they actually played that one. Missouri played them tough in the ballgame, but that's kind of where it all fell apart for them. Like, they put everything into that game. They lost by 3. But you're right, Bama, they haven't blown people out. They're not putting tons of points up. They can't run the football. And they're skeletons in the closet came home to roost. And yeah, they have, Auburn in 2 weeks, and then they're probably going to play in the SEC championship game. They're going to go and they're going to play A&M or Georgia and somehow win an SEC championship. One way or another, it's just the way it'll happen. And when they get to the playoff, that's when they will truly either be exposed or have a chance to vindicate themselves. If they're surviving and advancing, like we talked about many weeks now, it's not about style points, but you kind of hope that you would see them take somebody out. Oklahoma was ready. Brett Venables has Kalen DeBoer's number. It's funny. Kirby has an Alabama problem. Right now, Kalen DeBoer have a Brett Venables problem.
Maybe.
His offense, it doesn't matter who the quarterback is. He still has Ryan Williams. The supporting cast has been the same for the most part. But both games, they have, 30 total points? They had 3 in the first one, but they got smoked 23-3. And then they scored 21 yesterday. So 24 points in 2 games. You're averaging 12, and your offense is supposed to be this, explosive machine. And they haven't been able to run the ball all year. We were all kind of waiting, like, when's that running game, a lack of running game, going to bite them in the butt? And it did. You got a couple of weeks. It is what it is. Like that loss to Florida State kind of motivated them, but now you're starting to see that maybe adrenaline kind of wear off. And does this reignite that team, or does this start showing that all of those issues are going to continue to keep compounding as we move? I'm saying this upcoming week, that's not going to be a problem. But versus Auburn, it's in Jordan Air. It's always a scary place there when Alabama goes to play for the Iron Bowl. And then the SEC championship game. If you go and play A&M, that A&M team will steamroll them. And that puts you at 3 losses, and they're going to get in the playoff because they got the loss in the championship game. But they're seeding, they're going to probably be on the road. Alabama could have a 4-loss season as a playoff team, which really, I think the chatter would start because that's could be back-to-back 4-loss years for Kalen DeBoer.
Yeah. I don't necessarily know if, after watching A&M with South Carolina, as long as A&M plays their game, they'll roll in that one. But A&M cannot play like they did against South Carolina. Like, that can't happen.
That first half, it was literally a tale of 2 halves. Like, Charles Dickens has a tale of 2 cities. This is a tale of 2 halves. That second half, that team looked unbeatable. That first half, they looked like JV garbage. And I think it was also maybe right before kickoff, they announced that they were looking at Elko was about to sign the 5-year extension, or the extension, and become the 5th highest paid college football coach. Kind of like, all the vibes are great. Everything's sort of rolling until halftime. It was kind of a major pucker moment for A&M, but they found a way to bounce back. I think previous teams, that A&M team would have given up another 2 more touchdowns and quit. So there is something to be positive about that resolve that Elko has, and the team is actually buying in and playing for Mike Elko, and playing for each other, which is scary because there's a lot of talent there.
All right, Fresh. I want to go over and talk about Southern California here, man. I don't want us to be East Coast biased here. I'm always against any type of bias one way or another. But we got to talk about USC, man. And first off, Makai Lemon, I'm sorry, but this show is very pro Makai Lemon. We are very high on this young man. He had a freaking day out there in the rain, it was not great weather. USC, I kind of like took a few steps back during the first half of that game, came racing back to beat an Iowa defense that had been fairly stingy and completely choked the life out of that Iowa offense, even though Iowa looked somewhat coherent at times. But look at this USC team, man. There are two loss team. One loss is to Notre Dame in South Bend, Indiana. The other loss on this year is to Illinois. And remember, they had a lead. They gave Illinois just too much time, and they had a lead in that game. Illinois was able to drive down, kick a game-winning field goal as time expired in that football game. I think we need to start, if we're going to start talking about Oklahoma, and we're going to start talking about, Texas and some of those teams that are in the back half of the top 10, we need to start putting USC in that area. I know that the committee rated Utah in the 12 spot or 13 spot, wherever they were. USC needs to be in that range right there.
Well, we're going to find out about USC when they go play Oregon. If USC loses, they fall in that 3-loss category, just like Texas. And you're kind of like, well, you had a bad loss on the road where you blew it. You have looked better, but you're still the same. You have a 3-loss team. Could a 3-loss team make the playoff? Yes. They have to make this loss.
Especially this year.
If they beat Oregon, fantastic. They're a lock. If they lose to Oregon, it better be like a one possession late. If you get beat by double digits, they're going to be like, oh, well, they have a problem. Now, Michigan, I think the Michigan and USC are now fighting for that fourth Big Ten playoff spot. And with USC having that win over Michigan has to obviously beat Ohio State. So the cards are in USC's favor if they can just make it through. If they get the doors beat off of them and Michigan's the doors beat off of them by Ohio State, which I'm not going to say anything. The Big Ten might only have 3 teams, so that actually be a good chance. The playoff integrity of the conference is at stake here. They're kind of hoping that USC puts up a fight. Now, that also kind of raises questions. Can we kind of joke, like, do the conference commissioners kind of give a nod to these games, like, or do you start seeing referees, in all the day and age of like betting and all those suspect things, that is everything all up to the snuff? You start seeing some flags on Oregon to keep USC close, to keep them in that 4th spot, because in the end, it's dollars. The more teams from a conference get in, the more exposure for the conference. It also gives TV viewers a West Coast team, because if they're not in, you have Oregon up there in the Pacific Northwest. No one else. There's no
BYU if they got in.
If they have a chance, but they're going to get Cincinnati, and they're probably going to play Texas Tech for the rematch in the title game. But you kind of look at the West Coast, you're like, there's more incentive to keep USC in.
Right.
What happens in the fall game is going to be very intriguing. I think they have the talent. Their defense is vastly improved from where it had been under any kind of Lincoln Riley team, whether it's Oklahoma or at USC. But can Maeva and that offense go toe-to-toe with Oregon? Can they actually, in the one time we actually are looking, can Lincoln Riley win a shootout at USC? That's going to be interesting to see, because Lemon's a great receiver. They've shown improvement. Can Maeva actually deliver in the clutch against an Oregon defense? There is a lot on the line right now for the Big Ten and for USC and for Lincoln Riley, because he still has not made the playoff. And it's right there in front of you. Once again, a playoff spot is staring you in the face. Are you going to step up and get the job done, or are you going to choke? Big time game for Lincoln Riley in his legacy, because that one, he had a couple runs there at Oklahoma, but obviously never won a playoff game. He was brought to USC to get to the playoff, and this could be another big time miss if they don't get it done on Saturday.
Yeah, we'll get more into in our preview episode there. I like this USC team a lot more than I've liked them in years past, because, again, I do think the defense has been vastly improved, just like you said. I need to see it against Oregon. I need to see it with my own eyes. Again, even if you are a close loss team, again, you lose by, let's say, another game-winning drive by Oregon. Oregon gets the ball with 2:25 left, drives the length of the field, scores a touchdown to win the game. By all means, I think that's what I hate the term good loss, because I never think an actual loss is a good loss, but it does show us, I think it reinforces that you are on level with the other elite teams. I just look at USC and I go, man, there's something there that I see in them that I don't necessarily see at every other team. And again, they've been improving all year long. I just kind of wonder, it's been so quiet on teams like Notre Dame, on teams like USC this year, because you've had a great story. Texas Tech, amazing story there. Indiana, amazing story with what they're doing with Kirk Cincinnati. There's other underdog stories that I think are better. But again, two top tier programs.
USC is not going to be underdog.
I
The
get it.
image of USC removes them from being an underdog.
Return from
But
grace stories.
Return to prominence. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go from good to great, if you will.
Right. So, all right, Fresh. Well, let's get into it here this is my college football playoff rankings. Folks, I told you every single week on our Sunday show, on a recap show, I will list my college football playoff rankings. And make sure you check out spinnablesports.com because Fresh will release his. All right, Fresh, I had a really, really tough time with this set of rankings because if anyone knows me, I try to always stay consistent. Always stay consistent. If I say something, I kind of stick to it there. So, as much as I was very disappointed in A&M and how they played against South Carolina in the first half, they won the football game. They're an undefeated team in a Power 4 conference. My top 3 doesn't change at all. I have Ohio State number 1, Indiana number 2, Texas A&M number 3. Again, undefeated Power 4 conference teams, you automatically go to the very, very top of my list. Doesn't matter who you played. If you're undefeated in Power 4, that's all that matters to me. Moving up to number 4. I went back and forth on this one. I went with my initial gut on this reaction. I'm going to put Georgia in at number 4 right now. I really like how they beat the living breaks off of Texas there. Again, they beat up Ole Miss. They have 2 really, really good wins. The Alabama loss is still a decent loss. It's by 3, even though it is at home. We talked about Kirby and his thoughts with Alabama. So again, I'm giving UGA a little bit of a break on that one. I definitely think they are right now the 4th best team. I'd probably say they're better than A&M. So I'd probably put them in the top 3 if I really had it, but they do have a loss right now. Texas Tech is number 5. And this is where I struggled with UGA and Texas Tech. UGA has played better opponents and won closer games. And they've been cardiac kids all year. Texas Tech has played lesser opponents, but I don't think any win is by less than 20 points, if I read that right. I think they've blown every team out by 20 points or more. I think that's right. Check. I'll have to look it up too, but I believe that they said that Texas Tech's every single win is by 20 or more points. And yep, it is accurate. Yep, that's true. They're Fresh. Every win is by 20 plus points. That was the only reason why I kind of hemmed and hawed against UGA and Texas Tech. I think that they're very similar in different ways, but again, I'm going to give UGA the nod over that. Number 6 is Oregon for me. I think Oregon blew out Minnesota. Again, maybe they had a midseason lull there. They still only have 1 loss. Moving back up, now this is going to shock some people. They're undefeated, and their 1 loss is to Texas Tech. The BYU Cougars are coming back in to the top 10. They're number 7. I'm putting BYU back in there. Again, Fresh, I said to everyone, and I stay consistent with what I said. What do we see BYU respond after losing to Texas Tech? Do we see them beat the crap out of TCU? If they beat the breaks off of TCU, I'll move them back up. If they don't, I'll drop them. Notre Dame is number 8. Notre Dame has impressed me, very much so. And then we get to the other one, Ole Miss. Ole Miss, you are in at number 9 for me. I don't give you any credit for beating the Citadel last week, and you struggled mightily with a pretty bad Florida team. And Florida was not looking good, and I really don't think very much of Ole Miss's defense right now as well. I have moved Oklahoma to number 10, and Alabama is dropping all the way down to number 11 for me. I'm dropping Alabama. I can't put Alabama ahead of Oklahoma.
So give me the matchups right now. If you had 12 and 5, give me those breaks. I want to hear those games and what those games would be right now if the playoffs started today.
Well,
so 1 through 4 obviously get the buys,
but I haven't had a group of 5 team in yet, and I haven't had an ACC team in yet. So Alabama, and Oklahoma will be left out because at number 12 I put Georgia Tech.
Okay, so then Alabama gets left out because then you'd have to put in
a group of 5. Yep. So Georgia Tech would be be in there. So I'd have Georgia Tech versus Texas Tech. I would have Oklahoma versus
Well,
Oregon.
hold on. You have your group
Oh,
of
right.
5 would be the
Five.
12.
Group of 5 would be Texas Tech, Georgia Tech versus Oregon, Oklahoma versus BYU, Notre Dame versus Ole Miss. That'd be a fun matchup.
That'd be a fun Friday night, Saturday. I would think the
Especially,
group of 5 at Texas Tech would be probably the Friday night game.
yeah,
Out there in
James
Lubbock,
Madison.
Oral Fields. James Madison, the game would be over in a heartbeat on Friday night, but it would be fun to watch. And then you stagger out the other 3, which would be a fun Saturday of college football.
Yeah. See, and I know it's weird, but I think to me, like when I'm doing this, I'm not thinking about matchups. I'm just kind of like putting people where, kind of taking their whole body at work. I'm not trying to be a prisoner of the moment. Number 13 for me, my last 4, I guess it's 5 teams. My next 5 teams, they're just on the outside looking in. USC, I put them at number 13. I'm very high on USC, probably higher than some other people. I know the committee really loves Utah. I don't like, I shouldn't say that. I like Utah. I like the Utes. I like Kyle Whittingham. I just don't like their body of work.
They're not a national championship contender.
They're not. But I'm going to put Miami over Utah right now. Miami's in at 14 for me because I think I got to put some ACC teams. I guess I kind of feel obligated almost. I got Utah at 15. I don't really love that. I was kind of searching for like another team to put in there. Again, I got Vandy at 16. Vandy's was playing well. And then I kind of started looking at their body of work going, well, they played well early on in the season. And they're kind of falling off. The Wolverines, they struggled with Northwestern this past week. I don't love them. They're at 17. So right there's my playoff committee there.
The craziest part of the whole thing right there is just Virginia, who is going to basically be a lock for the ACC title game, is not even in your top 18.
Yeah.
And they have 2 losses, but technically only 1 conference.
I'd have 18.
But that's the craziest thing is that they are behind Georgia Tech. Right. They're behind Miami, Miami has to get in as a large bid. And honestly, they're not good enough.
Yeah.
It's mind-blowing. Virginia they've had multiple overtime games. They've found ways to squeak through. And you kind of look back. What if they had lost that, the double overtime or triple overtime game to Florida State? What if Florida State found a way to, like that turning point? Does that give Florida State momentum to keep moving on, like survive and advance? You're 4-1 at that point, or 4-0. And does Virginia sort of fall back? Because Virginia has Chandler Morris been the quarterback being hurt. I don't see them as a national championship contender, but they are a fantastic story. They've found ways to be resilient. But if they play Georgia Tech or they play Pitt, who you don't even have in the top 18 because they got smoked yesterday, or Miami, they're probably losing in all 3 of those games, but they haven't had to play them because this conference expansion, you don't have a fair and balanced schedule. So you've avoided all these teams that are actually, I'm going to say above average and pretty good in the ACC, but you're going to go play for the ACC title and probably get beat by 2 touchdowns. And it's the day we live in where you can find yourself playing for a conference title where your only way in is to win the championship game. But if you lose, you're probably out. And that's exactly why I'm against the committee guaranteeing playoff spots if you play for a conference championship. Mm-hmm. If you are worthy of a team in maybe the top 6 and you lose, you're okay. But if you are not in the top 12 and you lose the conference championship game, your only path in was winning that game. You're not going to get rewarded just for making your conference title game because the unbalanced schedule creates chaos.
Mm-hmm. Fresh. And think about this. I gave you my first round matchups there. Like Texas Tech versus James Madison, Oregon versus Georgia Tech, BYU, Oklahoma, Notre Dame, Ole Miss. If it went chalk, and every higher seed won the home playoff game, that would set up a second round that follows this. Ohio State, Notre Dame, rematch of last year's national title game. Indiana versus BYU, kind of 2 plucky upstart game. A&M versus Oregon, UGA versus Texas Tech. I mean,
that'd be a lot of fun.
It would be a lot of fun. And
I would tell you right now, Indiana would put up 50 on BYU.
Probably. Oh, good chance that it is. But I'm trying to stay consistent to what I've said over 3 episodes. That's always been my thing. Try to stay consistent. But again, hey, playoff committee, I'm available. I'm cheap. You can get me on the cheap. I can design some very good matchups for us that I guarantee is going to drive viewerships. You'll like me. I'll tell you that much. And I won't be biased. I'll step out of the room for the Ohio State talk. So there you go.
Well,
all right, folks.
Good gentleman.
Yeah, what a gentleman of that. I'm very classy, man. All right, folks, you've been listening to another episode of the Irrational Confidence Podcast. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, get notified every single time we drop a new episode. rolling through this. We love interacting with you. Thank you guys for watching the shorts. Thank you guys for watching the episodes, doing everything, engaging with us. The engagement is so much fun. Now we've enjoyed talking to you guys. So keep those things coming. Keep them rolling here. Like, subscribe wherever you get your podcast from. Special thanks to our producer, Drew. Make sure you check out Fresh's Top 25. It's coming out on the website, so make sure you check it out there. And engage with us on social media. We're on the X. We're on all different platforms there, so engage with us. And that's all I got, Fresh. We're on to lucky week number 13. And then we're cruising right over to rivalry week coming up. And that is where you want to lock in, because we'll have some mega episodes for rivalry week.
Hit us up, everybody. Spread the word. Spinnable Sports YouTube channel, spinnablesports.com. Hit us up on X. We want to hear from your engagement, and we can't wait to bring you a preview for week 13. Until next time, talk to y'all later. Bye, y'all.